We'll begin with the story which has dominated my social media for the past few days now. John Eustace is set to leave playoff chasing Blackburn Rovers for relegation-threatened Derby County. Now, a lot has happened since we spoke about the reports of this story on Sunday. It was all rather speculative at that stage, wasn't it? But now we are at this point where it looks like it is happening and is expected to be announced basically as soon as we finish recording here today, I think, Justin. Of course, one of the things that's happened is Blackburn's rather scathing statement about the whole saga. They put out a statement on Tuesday, it was, where they said they were extremely disappointed with John Eustace and went on to say that they made significant investment in the squad in the January window with 6 new additions, and the club felt they were in a good position to challenge for a playoff place this season. So firstly, Justin, what do you make of that statement?
I think they're just defending themselves, to be political about my answer. I could say, it's very petty. But yeah, I think they're just defending themselves over what seems an injustice, if you like. They probably don't view themselves as a step down to Derby in this current situation. I think Eustace leaving for them in leaving Blackburn for Derby in the relegation zone will make every fan question the club. So I think this statement, all they've done is come out swinging, and I'd expect nothing less. But I do think those issues run a lot deeper. He would pardon this transfer strategy is quite questionable. You just go back years, they've allowed key players' contracts to run down, diminish their own value. Ben Brereton, Diaz, Adam Armstrong, Darrell Lenihan are the first names that come to my mind in that. There's that Duncan Maguire, Lewis O'Brien transfer deadline day scenarios in successive January transfer deadline days as well, if we remember those. But these are all preceding John Eustace, but I think it just highlights that run a lot deeper at Blackburn. And I think from a Eustace perspective, he's probably seeing a lot more of a settled environment at Derby. So yeah, there's probably a little bit of Blackburn where they're going, well, we're a bit offended by that. Fuck you, sort of thing. And again, that's absolutely fine.
Well, I went into a lot of detail on the John Eustace to Derby saga in my new YouTube video on the Second Tier YouTube channel. I think now's a good time to plug it, Justin, where I give my take on everything that's going on here. So I won't go over old ground with that. If you want to get my thoughts on it and basically why this all seems to be happening, go have a look at that. The one thing I will say, which I don't think has been considered here, is it's pretty clear to me that Eustace's agent has made this move happen, because you go back to last week, Justin, we said the timing of the Paul Warne sacking was strange. It appears to me that Eustace's agent has alerted Derby and said, look, he's interested. It'll only cost $500,000 to get. It's your move. And then Derby have obviously made the call. That's just what I think about it, why this has all come about so suddenly. But just we have spoken at length about why this is happening and how big a blow it is for Blackburn. One thing we haven't really discussed is what this means for Derby, because it's a giant coup for them, isn't it? Just sum it up for us, how significant this could be in regards to their survival hopes, because it has been looking a bit perilous for the past few weeks, but it's a massive, massive thing for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge boost, huge boost, a huge positive as well. I think the important thing is from my own personal point of view, he's well revered at Derby. I loved him as a player, and I think their promotion charge in the 2014-15 season derailed once he got injured. And he was just a player that I loved. He's a good organiser. He was clearly a good communicator on the pitch. And you think if you can repeat that as a manager, then yes, Derby are in a really good position with him coming into the club. There is a little bit of nervousness from me because he doesn't have a Sammy Schmodics at his disposal. Obviously, he guided Blackburn to safety last season, but there was a Schmodics there. There was a Schmodics to score the goals. Derby don't have that. Derby are devoid of ideas in possession. But if there's a manager who's clever enough to improve them going forwards, then John Eustace is that man. He's worked with less at Birmingham City, and of course he's done a good job in getting Birmingham overachieving this season. So yeah, I think it's a huge positive. I think there's not a lot of work that needs doing at Derby. Out of possession, I think they're fine. Going forward is where the real task is. But I think for them to get a former player who's on the upward trajectory as a manager is a huge coup.
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, this time last week, I was very quickly losing hope in Derby staying up. But getting a manager as good as John Eustace changes everything, because at Blackburn, and Birmingham for that matter, he's overachieved, hasn't he? And of course, left both of them while they're in the top six, which I don't think there's many managers who have managed to do that in their careers. But look, Derby are already quite an organised side. It's going forward to where the real issues lie, and John Eustace will definitely help with that, because you look at Blackburn's squad, it's not exactly chock full of attacking talent, but he manages to squeeze the most out of those players. The priority has been keeping it tight at the back, though, and that suits Derby down to a T, because, I mean, he's such an upgrade on Paul Warren, isn't he? He just simply is. And no matter who he was in charge of, I'd be surprised to see a John Eustace team go down. So I think it'll be difficult, because Derby's attackers are so poor, as we've said on many occasions this season, Justin, and it may end up going down to the last game of the season like it did for Eustace when he came in at Blackburn last season. But Derby will become much harder to beat and a lot more efficient. And look, Eustace wouldn't leave Blackburn in the position they're in if he wasn't confident about keeping Derby up ultimately, would he? So Derby fans have every right to be feeling very optimistic about this move. It's a massive, massive coup for them. Well, John Eustace wasn't in charge of Derby's game on Tuesday night against Oxford, which finished goalless, and that's just as well, because it was an appalling game, Justin. I've got two things written down on this game, Justin. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah. I've got something I need to say on this as well.
The first thing I've written down is I saw Derby's mascot, Rammy the Ram. He walked past me when I was at the stadium, and he walked past me with his hands out for a high five, and I just left him hanging. But then he was still doing it as he approached this woman and ended up knocking her coffee out of her hands. And then Rammy just kept walking and didn't have a clue.
What a nonchalant mascot. I love it. The arrogance of mascots is incredible.
He's an absolute cold-hearted bastard, is Rammy the Ram. And the only other thing I've written down is that I was sat in front of two old men, and they spent the vast majority of the second half talking about how many funerals they've been to recently. And somehow, that was still not as depressing as watching Caden Jackson controlling balls with his shin for an hour.
That's literally in line with what I wanted to say. It was the worst game of football I've laid my eyes on. It left me reading the back of a Skittles wrapper at various points to check out how my sweet tooth is going to kill me years down the line. It was a game so bad, it left me thinking about death. And clearly, the two blokes in front of you are on the same wavelength. The biggest highlight from this game was Sondre Lancaster, new Derby signing, shielding the ball out of play.
Yeah, he's got all the elements of a future shithouse king in the championship, hasn't he? He looks like a real character. But yeah, it was a really, really cool game. And John Eustace probably watched this and thought, yeah, I've got quite a bit of work to do with this team.
Sorry, Blackburn.
Yeah. John Eustace has asked for permission to speak to Blackburn once again. One other thing I've got to mention on this game, actually, Ryan Liambe, just 5 appearances from breaking the record for the most championship games without ever scoring a goal. Come on, Ryan. You're nearly there, son. But let's talk about John Eustace's old side, or current side now, but probably old side by the time a lot of people listen to this episode, because he wasn't in charge of Blackburn for their game away at West Brom on Wednesday night, but they showed that they didn't necessarily need him, Justin. They won 2-0. And I think it's important to point out that, as positive as we are about this from a Derby perspective, about John Eustace moving down back to the Midlands, one thing we must point out is John Eustace's final 6 games at Blackburn, they lost 5 of them. So this is a result which has really gone against the form book, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think West Brom are a bit of an unknown, but Blackburn have been relatively poor leading into the game. We see them losing 5 of the last 6 games has been poor, but I think what they came up against here was a really poor West Brom side. I think Maktar Gay is starting to show that he's a goal threat, and despite John Eustace leaving Blackburn, my love and appreciation for that long human being isn't going to waver. And I think all this game has done is enhance my love for him. The fact that he tried to pull
whoever
off...
Blackburn get in next, Justin, we just want someone who's going to get the best out of Big Macca, don't we? That's exactly all we want.
Exactly. And looking at the candidates, we could see that, but more on that in a moment. But the fact that he pulled off his overhead kick to an extent, it was straight at Joe Wildsmith in the West Brom goal. We should have done better. But I just love a footballer who's far too big to attempt overhead kicks, and he pulled this one off. But this was a good performance. Maktar Gueye was the goal threat. You look at the goal for the second one, which was a great counter attack. I think it was literally just 3 passes, and then they were into the West Brom box. I think it's a timely reminder that this Rovers team can punish opposition, can be direct, and they can be clinical, as they were in that first half. So maybe adversity helps them, but I think it's just a timely reminder that this Blackburn team is a well-oiled unit.
Yeah, it was a proper Eustace shithousing, really, wasn't it? Which is ironic because they didn't have Eustace. They've had a few games this season where they've been on the back foot for most of it and still got a result. And this was the same case here, really, wasn't it? But I think it goes to show, as good a manager as John Eustace is, it doesn't mean their playoff hopes are totally in the bin that he's leaving. Because, yes, this squad could have done with a bit more business in January. Yes, there's a lot of frustration about the owners once again. But Blackburn are still in a really good position, very well organised. And whoever comes in has got a decent opportunity to continue Eustace's good work. And if they get a playoff place, who knows where they could go from there. But it seems we may not be waiting for long to find out who's going to be replacing John Eustace, Justin, because Blackburn have reportedly been looking at other candidates in preparation for his departure. They're said to be considering Gary O'Neill and several foreign managers, including Aitor Karanka, Carlos Carvajal and Raphael Wicke, who nearly joined West Brom not long ago. Any thoughts on those names, Justin Peach?
I mean, Gary O'Neill would beat the coup, wouldn't he? But it would be interesting to see who they point next, considering where they might be in their career. You reel off Aitor Karanka and Carlos Carvajal, and I think they're at a stage in their managerial career where they'd be lucky to get a championship job, I think. So if they get either one of those two, I wouldn't be overly revered. But I think if Gary O'Neill came in, that would be some statement that they're moving very quickly on from Gary O'Neill, and probably an upgrade. I like Gary O'Neill a lot. Sorry, moving on from John Eustace. I like Gary O'Neill a lot. I think he's a good manager who can organise a team and play good football at the same time. I think he was unlucky at Wolves this season because he had to put up with a lot of injuries and a lack of investment in the summer that they've really, really needed. So, I think he's overachieved in 2 of his jobs. That's a very good place to be in, but I'm not overly revered at the thoughts of Karanka and Carvajal. I don't really know why talks broke down with West Brom and Raphael Wicke. So again, that could lead into something else, but we'll see how it goes on. As I say, I'd be interested to see who they get based on where they are in their career.
Well, the reason reportedly why Raphael Wicke didn't go to West Brom in the end was something to do with his backroom staff, because he couldn't get in the guys who he wanted. So how that changes things with Blackburn, I don't know. But I agree with everything you say there about Gary O'Neill, Justin. I would be surprised if he went for it, though. I think he's destined for his next job to be in the Championship, but he must surely think, if I bide my time, I can get a job at a club where the last 2 managers haven't left because of complaints about ambition from the club's owners. So I would be surprised if they manage to get him, but fair play if they do. Karanka and Carvajal, it's not 2018 anymore, is it? That's all I'll say on that one.
That's doing something as well.
It's interesting that most of their shortlist is apparently made up of foreign managers. Maybe they think they have to go abroad to find someone who isn't familiar with the problems at Blackburn. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see where they go next. It's definitely a chance for someone to come in and keep them in the playoffs. So, it's going to be very, very interesting to see who they do get in next. Let's talk about some more of the midweek action, though, Justin, and we'll go down south. Plymouth Argyle 5, Millwall 1. Fresh off the back of pulling off one of the biggest shocks in the FA Cup's recent history, and now they get just their 2nd league win since early November. And they've done it in some fashion, Justin Peach.
Yeah, an incredible performance. I think this is just a really important point to make, in that there was no anti-Plymouth agenda. Wayne Rooney was just really shit. This performance under Miran Muslic is a highlight of what a good, charismatic leader who's a well-organised coach can deliver. and I'm not getting carried away. They've put away a team whose defensive record is very, very good in this division. When was the last time Millwall got pumped by 5 goals? Riddle me that, ladies and gents, because it's not a regular occurrence. This performance really was incredible, and I think it should shine a light on Mirren Micelic. I think he's had a lot of praise anyway because of how well he comes across in the media with the FA Cup action. But he's charismatic. He's a good coach. He's made this Plymouth team compact, but I think mostly he's delivered belief into a group of individuals who were devoid of it. And I think if you can do that as a manager, you're in such a good place. You really are. And that's why I think Plymouth have excelled in such a short space of time. As I say, there's no point getting carried away, but, they've beat a Millwall team who are very, very good, and they beat them very, very easily and scored 5 goals against them. And I think what we're seeing is Mirren Micelic play to the strengths of the individuals he's got available to him. I don't think it's a squad packed full of talent, but if you look at the way they defend, if you look at the way they break forward, it's quick, it's zippy, and they've got players who, I think if you give them too much time, they overthink it. But if you allow them to just get the ball forward, get it into space, they're going to punish teams. And we're seeing that now. And that's a positive. And that's a good coach coming in and highlighting the strengths of the quality he's got available to him. And it's important.
Who is Mirren Micelic and what has he done with the old Plymouth? That's the question I've got here. Because in the space of a few weeks, they've gone from absolutely hopeless to this. It is remarkable. And let's be honest, they were completely hopeless when Micelic came in. You mentioned there, Justin, about how Plymouth fans have accused us of having an agenda. Like, what positives could we really have about this Plymouth team previously? Yeah. Because they were so poor. And even Micelic struggled when he came in initially. But now, with a few additions, I think the new additions have really helped Plymouth, because they've all been superb, really, since they've come in. But they now look a completely different side. You've got Ryan Hardy, who's having the time of his life. 5 goals in his last 3 games now, including one against the soon-to-be champions of England, of course. They're just so much more confident as a side, and a great example of that was Mustafa Bundu's goal. Because a couple of months ago, he would have completely messed that up, but instead, he had the composure to take the touch, do the turn, and finish brilliantly. It was a beautiful goal, and Mirren Micelic has got this team fighting for each other. We all know he's a great motivator, Justin. Those team talks, shivers down the spine, but he's clearly got a knack for the old management role as well. And look, there's still a way to go until they're actually safe, but you've got to remember, to be even having this conversation seemed like a dream for Plymouth not long ago. And the most remarkable thing is, Justin, they're now off the bottom of the table. Plymouth aren't bottom anymore. It's crazy because they looked miles gone not too long ago, didn't they?
Yeah, it's been an incredible transformation. It really has. I don't think numerically they've really excelled under Mirren Micelic. We're not seeing them sort of really put teams away and keep teams out. But we're seeing it's become night and day to what was happening before he came in to what is happening now. They just don't look a soft chance, a soft touch, I should say, anymore. They're giving themselves a fighting opportunity in games. And I think, if you go back to that Burnley game, I think it was Jordan Houghton who was robbed with the ball at his feet on the edge of the Burnley, the edge of the Plymouth area. And Burnley scored from it. I think it was the 5th goal in the first half. It was tragic at that point. It was bad, and you don't really get the idea or the thought that Micelic is going to turn things around at Plymouth. But like I've been alluding to, he's playing to that team's strengths, and like you said, the highlight of confidence in that team is Bundes' goal. But in addition to that, Ryan Hardy back among the goals is another indicator, because he's getting in behind defences and he's being fed the ball as well. They're seizing their moments. You look at the penalties they've scored. They've been decisive against West Brom, Liverpool. That gave them a 2-0 lead in this game. Just the confidence, I think, is the biggest transformation. I don't think it's been a tactical overhaul, but it's just simplified things and given that team confidence, and that goes a hell of a long way.
Yeah, because they were looking very short on confidence, weren't they? Particularly towards the end of Wayne Rooney's reign. So now he's come in and just done this. It's a proper remarkable job that he is doing. Plymouth have got managerless Blackburn at the weekend, which will be a very interesting game from a neutral perspective, wouldn't it? Justin, let's have a quick break. After that, we'll talk about the teams nearer the top end of the Championship table. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. We're having a midweek review of everything that's been cracking off across the Championship. And one team has really been enjoying the past few weeks, haven't they? That's Leeds United. They are still top of the table, still 3 points clear, but it is their third win in a row, this time thumping Watford 4-0 at Vicarage Road. And this was another breathtaking performance from Leeds United, Justin.
Yeah, a bit of a wee spanking as well. Some of the football here was borderline disgusting, I think, from Leeds. I mean, the Joel Pirro goal, just get out. You've got no right.
It's a piss take, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an absolute piss take. But Ayo Tanaka, I don't think it's been talked about enough how he literally just dribbled in a circle and was somehow free on the edge of the box. I don't really know what happened there, but it was a really nice goal, wasn't it?
It was gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. But the manner of the win, as I say, it just felt like a team going up in gears. They looked sensational. The play, the moving through the thirds, the chances, the quantity of chances they had in getting behind Watford. I think, it just alludes to the quality they've got. But also, I think, this is Leeds taking their chances. They've done this on a consistent basis. They've done this to teams. They just haven't been taking their chances. And maybe some opposition have sniffed that out and taken a look. But I think they've given themselves a lot of relief by taking those opportunities that have been put in front of them. So, a breathtaking performance from Leeds. The individuals, can't fault any of them. And I think, as I say, that Joel Pirro goal, I think is what Leeds look like in top gear. Confident, showboaty, cutting through it like a scissor through paper. Great analogy, but you get the point.
Your analogies are always top notch, Justin. But 13 goals and non-conceded in the last 3 games is just ridiculous, isn't it? And on so many times it was like a knife through hot butter. This one, that's probably a better analogy for you, Justin, because they were relentless and tore poor Watford apart. They probably should have won by more as well. Joel Pirro will be wondering how he didn't score more than one in this game. But even then, he was still superb. Manor Solomon was ruthless once again. And Dan James, someone whose form we probably haven't given enough praise for, actually. 6 goal contributions in 5 games. He's playing his best football in a long time. But then Leeds also kept Watford at arm's length as well. It was a professional win, but also with a lot of class, like James Bond, Justin. This was a very James Bond-esque win.
Very James Bond-esque, with a hint of womanising. Oh, yeah, very good.
Yes.
It probably felt like that from Watford at times, but we talk about peaking at the right time. You mentioned the goals they're scoring, 13 in the last 3. They've 6 clean sheets in a row as well in the league. It's just astonishing levels. It really is. And I think, Daniel Farke teams are very good at having very good second half of the seasons, for use of better words. They're a very efficient outfit, and we're just seeing them, like I alluded to, we're seeing them move up the gears. And it's a frightening proposition if Leeds started to do that. I think, with Sunderland,
they're in top gear at this stage, Justin, aren't they?
I think this performance was a showcase of their being in top gear, and I think it's quite frightening for them, an opposition, to what goes ahead and what lies ahead, which is incredible. Also, they've not conceded a header all season, so again, we talk about them being good defensively. That's just another example of that. It's just a quality team, quality players.
Yeah, and they're now 3 points clear at the top of the table. They were 3 points clear anyway, but they are. Even though the gap between them and the other 3 teams who are in this top 2 race, Justin, hasn't closed much or grown much in the past few weeks, it does seem like we're getting to a stage that it's looking increasingly likely that Leeds are going to piss the league now, doesn't it? Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. You look, this is Leeds in top gear. They won 7-0 the other week against Cardiff. They're not conceding goals. They've always been good defensively. And now they're starting to take their chances. If this Leeds team find their shooting boots and clinical touch, and that's not to say they haven't this season, but it's about scoring at the right time. They're punishing opposition. And once that starts, it's hard to see it stopping. Once these players get confident in front of goal and everything becomes a rinse and repeat, then opposition, they're going to struggle against that gauntlet. They really are, because this is, like I said, it's a good team of good players, and how they performed in this game is just a showcase of that. So if they can repeat this performance, even 80% of it, they're going to swash away Championship teams easily.
Yeah, I don't really know what clicked all of a sudden before that 7-0 thrashing of Cardiff, but since then Leeds have just been in full throttle, haven't they, and haven't shown any sign of letting up. They've saved by far their best form of the season for the point where they are already top of the league, but you've got 3 other teams behind them who have seen a bit of a drop in their performance levels, and they have suddenly... Leeds, have suddenly looked like a team just on a completely different stratosphere to everyone else. And I've seen some Leeds fans say they're not counting their chickens yet until it's done, because it is Leeds United, of course. We've seen plenty of occasions of laziness over the years, particularly after last season. But at this rate, Leeds could have an end of season collapse similar to last year and still go up pretty comfortably, because these are the kind of performances they've been threatening to do all season, and are now doing them without really breaking a sweat. It's actually quite scary, Justin, because this Leeds team, when it is full of confidence, as I say, completely different levels to every other team in this league, really, aren't they?
Yeah, it probably begs a bit of a debate as to whether or not this Leeds team is better than the one we saw last season. I think they're more rounded. Individual quality has dropped, but I do think they're more rounded. I think central midfield got a lot more going on with it. I know losing Ruta was a big blow, but Brendan Harrison, I think, brings a little bit more across the entire pitch. Not as much in the final third, but again, he brings more balance to the final to the entire pitch. And they've got a lot more strength in the depth in the final third as well. So there's a good debate to have at some point in this season. But yeah, no matter what we talk about, all we can say is this Leeds team's a very good one with some very good individuals. And like I said, it's a scary proposition for the rest of the league, that if they can have that Leedsiness around April, May, they can still probably go to afford to go up at their canter.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, Leeds have got 2 big hurdles coming up, and if they pass them, then that might very well be it in terms of one automatic promotion place being taken up. They've got Sunderland this Monday, and then Sheffield United the following Monday. We'll be reacting straight off the back of each of those games live on the Second Tier YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe and join us for both of those games. It's now 3 wins on the bounce for Sheffield United after a 3-1 victory over Middlesbrough. And we've been saying Sheffield United have had a few games recently where they haven't been great, Justin. But this was certainly a step back up for them, wasn't it? A thoroughly deserved 3 points.
Yeah, really good performance. One we've really needed to see. Obviously, a huge drop off, and really difficult opposition here in Middlesbrough as well. But I think the way they performed here, they controlled the game, they dominated the game. Middlesbrough got back into it. Jack Robinson giving away a stupid penalty. But as I say, it allowed Middlesbrough back into game. But for me, Sheffield United went back into bossing it. They reset and they went again. Despite playing very poorly over the last few weeks, this was, again, night and day. They looked comfortable in possession. The Ben Brereton Diaz goal, I think, is a lovely example of that, right? Again, it's just a few passes forward. Gus Hamer's goal was similar at the weekend against Portsmouth, where the passing is so incisive and quick and almost instinctive. It's just about, our possession controlling our position a little bit better, and they did that here. So yeah, really, really comfortable. I wouldn't say an easy win from Sheffield United's perspective, because Middlesbrough did create a few chances, but going forwards, they were very, very effective.
Yeah, they were fantastic. They were massively helped by Middlesbrough being their own worst enemy on multiple occasions, but Sheffield United made them pay for it, as good teams so often do, and they probably should have won this by more, really, because Tyrese Campbell was through on goal, 2-on-1 with the goalkeeper, because he had Ben Brereton Diaz beside him, completely free, and he somehow messed it up. All he had to do, Justin, was your classic FIFA goal, where you just knock it to the side when you're 1-on-1 with the keeper.
Get sweaty, Tyrese.
Yeah, exactly. But considering it was 1-1 until the 75th minute, I think Sheffield United would have been kicking themselves if they didn't win this one. They were the better team. And while there's definitely room for improvement, they'll be hoping it's a step in the right direction after a bit of a wobble in their performances recently, Justin. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's been important to highlight how poor they have been, because that Portsmouth performance at the weekend, despite them winning, was bad. It was a bad performance. Yeah. I think if they came up against more quality over the past couple of weeks, they'd have been punished for it, even against Derby, where they came away with the win as well. So, yeah, this is a very good reaction. I think one that will definitely please Chris Wilder, because, as I say, they were very comfortable in possession. Out of possession, they were very, very good as well. Middlesbrough, a good attacking team, and I thought Sheffield United managed them nicely, as good as they could have. And I think that's as I say, just getting that team in, grounding them a little bit. I think one of the things that Wilder said was he thinks that egos sort of developed a little bit, and I think we saw that come down quite significantly here.
Yeah, and plus it's against his former club as well.
Yeah, forget about that.
Chris Wilder doesn't come across as the kind of guy who would hold a grudge, I say, with a sarcastic tone. Then I'm sure he would have very much enjoyed this one. Sunderland 2, Luton Town 0. Sunderland's unbeaten run in the league stretches to 8 games. And it's got to be said, this really was a walk in the park, wasn't it, Justin?
Yeah, not bad for a team suffering a dip in form, is it? Incredible stuff.
I mean, they have been suffering a dip, haven't they? They haven't been playing as well as they have been, but they weren't really challenged here at all, were they?
No. It could have been an awkward game as well, considering Plymouth, Derby and Watford have all frustrated Sunderland in recent weeks. I know Sunderland picking up a win against Derby, for example, doesn't really allude to that. The performance wasn't in top gear. But I thought the Black Cats rose to it. They pushed a team aside that is really, really struggling, and controlled the game. And I think from a Luton perspective, it highlights how poor they are. But as I say, it could have been an awkward one. But Sunderland made it look easy. And again, I know it is fair to say that we've had certain individuals not quite up to standard, and maybe an all-round controlling of games hasn't quite been there, which maybe gives the notion that they are suffering a dip. But this wasn't that. This was a controlled, professional midweek win, and that's what Sunderland need at the minute. Just giving the fans, giving the players a bit of respite in games, and reducing the drama to a minimum.
Yeah, it was quite astonishing how poor Luton were, and we'll talk more about them shortly. But considering Sunderland have had a few shaky performances recently, this was a nice little gimme to boost confidence and morale. A lovely goal by Enzo Lefebvre, Wilson Isidore's 11th goal of the season. Patrick Roberts had his best game in quite some time. And they kept Luton at arm's length. It was a job thoroughly well done for them. And it's actually the first time Sunderland have won at home by more than a 1-goal margin since October, which is a surprising stat, isn't it? So they'll be thankful for a very comfortable evening. And it was a very comfortable evening. Where on earth do we start with Luton Town, though, Justin? Now bottom of the table with just 2 points in 9 games now for the Hatters. And I think we sort of just expected Luton would improve at some point under Matt Bloomfield, but they really haven't, have they?
Yeah, they've sort of gone on the radar, haven't they? In that, maybe I think I've given them a little bit of benefit of the doubt because it's a new manager coming in and they were really poor. And I still feel for him in a way, but you've got to expect some impact, and we just haven't seen it. I still think the squad is devoid of leaders, devoid of responsibility and any confidence, and I think that's been the case all season. But Matt Bloomfield clearly hasn't had the desired effect. Experience, I think, as a manager is vital in this situation. Because you look at Miran Muslic, he's got a good pedigree, a good background in Belgium as a coach, and he's delivered success where he's overachieved significantly at his previous club, Cercle Bruges. And Matt Bloomfield was just starting to get the ball rolling at Wycombe. I think that's all I'm doing. I'm not criticising Matt Bloomfield. I'm just highlighting the difference in what you need in a relegation fight. Sometimes you need the charisma, the leader like Muslic. Don't think Matt Bloomfield comes across as that. So yeah, a style of play shift isn't necessarily needed. They need someone to breed confidence into that team, and he hasn't. And that's a major concern.
I think if you take a step back, it's got to be remembered here. If you're a side getting relegated from the Premier League in this current era and you're not in the fight for promotion with the imbalance of finances we're currently seeing, something's gone seriously wrong. Yeah. So I don't know where you even start to describe what's happening at Luton, considering the position they're in now, because they're genuinely not playing any better now than they were under Rob Edwards, are they? In fact, you could make a fair argument that they're actually even worse now. There's just not been a new manager bounce at all, has there? It's more of a new manager splat at this stage. And I'm not necessarily sure that's Matt Bloomfield's fault, because I think he's just been properly thrown in at the deep end here. But the reality of the situation is they're on a one-way course to relegation as things stand. People may point to the fact they spent a lot of money in January. It's actually one of the highest amounts in the Championship. So maybe once those players get going, things may be different. But as I was saying last week, I think they panic bought and massively overspent on who they've got in return. And there seems to be very little sign of things turning around with Luton. So, I mean, it's ironic, really, that they've just face Sunderland, Justin, who are, of course, the last team to suffer back-to-back relegations from the Premier League, because I genuinely think we're now at a stage where it's more likely than not that Luton Town get relegated because they're just so bad, Justin. Bottom of the league. Luton are bottom of the league with, 15 games to go. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think an 8th place finish would have been a bad season for Luton this season.
So what's this?
Well, yeah, what is this? It's nuclear, isn't it? It's ridiculous. But you are right. I think highlighting the fact that they've come down from the Premier League with the riches that they have and being as well run as they are financially, they're very smart outfit, business, etc. For them to suffer back-to-back relegations, I think is tragic. It's absolutely tragic. And it just goes to show that you need everything to be right. You need everything to be right. You need everything to be spot on. But I think the board has made a lot of mistakes over the last 12 months. And we're seeing the results of that, which is, a team that shouldn't be bottom of the league, currently bottom of the league. It's a disaster.
Yeah, it is. It is really. And as we say, are there any signs of things improving? No. So while I imagine a lot of people do look at it and go, well, surely Luton won't go down. They're too good to go down. We've seen on plenty of occasions, it's not impossible for a team too good to go down. And Luton are very much looking like that right now because they are just shocking. We'll quickly touch on Burnley 2, Hull City 0, Justin, just to round off the top 4. Pretty routine win for Burnley here. It's just your classic Burnley win, really, wasn't it? A great goal by Bashir Humphries, I will say that much. But a significant night nonetheless, Justin, because James Trafford has now broken the championship record for the most minutes without conceding a goal. 910 minutes he's gone without conceding. That's 15 hours without letting in a goal, Justin. That is absolutely mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's championship history, isn't it? He's the first one to do it. And I think we go back to, can you remember when Petr Cech broke the record in the Premier League? It's like sort of the mid-2000s.
Yes, of course.
It's not been broken since. And it just goes to show just how difficult it is. So I think this is a record that will be in place, I wouldn't say forever, because that's a long time, but we just need to sort of revel in it a little bit. Yes, Burnley are a little bit boring, but this defensive record's insane. It's genuinely insane. You're playing Tuesday, Saturday. Games coming thick and fast, and you're keeping opposition out. Not a scrappy, scruffy goal to see. Just nothing exists in that Burnley world like that. It's incredible. And the weird thing is, I genuinely do find it difficult to understand or pick out who will actually put the ball in the back of the net against Burnley. Yeah, they've been so confident and so you made it look so easy. I think is a tremendous achievement.
Yeah, 9 goals conceded in 32 games is just mental, isn't it? You'd have thought like a ball would just go in off someone's arse at some point, but the fact that they are just so faultless at the back, it's just astonishing stuff, isn't it? So while we have been critical of Burnley on plenty of occasions this season, and probably will do because they're not the most excited side in the league by any means, that defensive record is one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever seen at championship level, and there's just no criticism you can even put anything towards that record with. It's ridiculous. And we'll finish off with a big game in the fight to stay up, just in Portsmouth. They beat Cardiff City 2-1, a huge result for Portsmouth, their first win in 5. But John Mousinho was actually quite unhappy after this one. Portsmouth started really well, but then dropped off a fair bit after the second goal, and Mousinho admitted he was absolutely furious at half-time with how much his side had dropped off. However, they got there in the end, and in the grand scheme of things, in the fight to stay up, this is a pretty significant 3 points, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah, huge 3 points. And you can be forgiven for thinking that Portsmouth were dropping off after going winless in their last 4, including some poor performances in their like West Brom. But I think that Sheffield United game last week, the weekend, was such a good performance. They just didn't take their chances. But you look at the intensity they attack with, especially in this game in that first half, their wing play, their pace at times is quite frightening. And it just emphasises the notion of their confidence at Fratton Park being astonishingly good. I think what really does refresh me is John Mousinho being pissed off with standards dropping. If we look at how nice Rob Edwards was at Luton and how they got sucked into relegation and how nice Port Warren was around his Derby players, John Mousinho saying it how it is, being pissed off with his players, I think it's good, and I think it's necessary to have when you're down there, the fighting amongst the relegation group. So really good performance, and I guess a lot to take from a John Mousinho perspective as well.
Yeah, he's got high standards, hasn't he? And he wants his team to just constantly be on it. And they were in stages of this game. Probably not as good as some of their recent performances, but still a very, very big 3 points for Portsmouth. I thought Josh Murphy was on fire. Whether he just wanted to get some revenge on his old club, I don't know, but he was definitely up for it. Colby Bishop was fantastic as well. As I say, might not have been their best performance, but they, it's considering they probably deserve more points than what they have had recently. I think it's fine for it to be the other way round for a change. Got to give a mention, by the way, for a tackle by Conor Ogilvie right at the end of this game. How he didn't get a straight red, I have no idea. He's gone right through the back of the Cardiff player. It's an appalling challenge. Have a look if you haven't seen it already. It's such a bad tackle. I don't know how he's not got a straight red for it. But look, just to show how big a result it was for Pompey, them and Plymouth were the only teams in the bottom 9 to win in midweek, and it sees them climb up to 18th. And also got to be said, they've got some inviting games coming up as well, so they could have a real chance to create some breathing space on the bottom 3. So it's all looking very positive for Portsmouth right now. It's not looking as optimistic for Cardiff City, though. After going 7 unbeaten in the league, it's now back-to-back losses for them. Their last 2 games being that 7-0 spanking at Leeds, and now a loss to a relegation rival. It has once again raised those concern levels amongst Cardiff City fans.
I think that's fair. I think I can understand why. I think in any other season, Cardiff might be 5 or 6 points comfortable, but considering the poorness, I think, of the bottom half and an inconsistency that Cardiff are suffering, it keeps pulling them in, doesn't it? Despite a very, very good run of form. I think you've got to point out how bleak it could have been had that form not been the case. But I think a lot of that nervousness and anxiety probably stems from there's a lot of change going on at the bottom of the table. Matt Bloomfield coming at Luton, Muslich at Plymouth, Sellers at Hull, Robbins at Stoke, John Eustace impending at Derby. There's a lot of movement there, which I think will make Cardiff fans nervous. And I think out of all of those managers, as a coach, Omar Reeks is probably the least experienced one. So I can understand why there is stress. I can understand why they can be frustrated, but I think you've got to hold your nerve while you're down there, haven't you, and keep supporting your team. And I think the Cardiff fans will do that. But we've seen with this Cardiff team, they can go on good runs, they can go on bad runs, and this might be the start of a bad run. But we know in 5 or 6 games' time there might be a good run. So positive. Let's stay positive.
Yeah, it's a very positive way of looking at it for a team who have had pretty disastrous 2 games, really. It is worth remembering Omar Reeks was very close to losing his job just before Christmas, but then they went on that bit of an unbeaten run, a fair few draws in there, but still a run nonetheless. However, they didn't accumulate a huge amount of points in that time to carry them away from the bottom 3, and now they're right in trouble once again, just as they seem to be dipping. And we're getting back towards a similar position we were in just before Christmas, where you're looking at Omar Reeks and wondering, is he good enough to keep Cardiff's heads above the water? And that's the question that I think a lot of Cardiff fans are asking right now, because they were looking quite solid last month, but they've been so shaky at the back in their last few games, ignoring the Leeds game because that was a bit more than just shaky, wasn't it? But Cardiff fans seem very worried all of a sudden, and that's completely understandable because it is not looking like they're in a great position right now. It is the 7th-side derby this weekend, and that's turning into a big game for reasons other than just local pride from a Cardiff perspective. So we'll talk more about that game in the previous show, brought to you by SBK tomorrow, because that's when we'll next be back, ladies and gents, as we'll have a look ahead to the weekend's action in another big weekend of Championship action. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I apologise if I've been a bit croaky in this episode, recovering from a serious case of man flu. And hopefully it's not disrupted your listening experience, ladies and gents. But I've soldiered on nonetheless, Justin.
Well done. It's your birthday as well. We should point that out. Happy birthday. And your gift is this terrible illness. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. So 31 years old, and here I am, just struggling to live, but that's fine. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.